In 2025, AWS commands a 30% share of the global cloud infrastructure market, making it one of the most sought after skills in the tech today. But getting the right AWS job isn't always easy, especially with so many candidates in the market. That's why we have designed this video on how to answer AWS interview questions to show you how to stand out in the highly competitive AWS job market. But there are countless resources. Why should you watch this one? Because our approach works. We have helped people like Harish who passed his AWS Solutions Architect exam in just 8 months. Kwame, a complete AWS beginner who landed a cloud job. Varun, a network engineer who aced his AWS certification even after a career gap. Also, if you are interested in landing a high-paying job in AWS Cloud, then check out our free masterclass on it. Check out the link in the description. Don't miss out. Now let's start with the first topic, which is why most candidates fail AWS interview questions. Many candidates fail AWS interview questions not because they lack technical knowledge, but because they struggle with how they present their answers. Recruiters are looking for answers that are structured, concise, and demonstrate a strong understanding of business needs, not just the theoretical knowledge. For instance, instead of saying I would use Lambda for serverless, a stronger response would be for this event-driven task, Lambda reduces cost by 70% compared to EC2 with auto-scaling capabilities. A crucial tip is to always clarify the question focus, whether it's about cost, scalability, or performance, before diving into your response. This ensures you are giving the most relevant and impactful answers. So in this section, we'll walk you through how to tailor your answer to what interviewers are truly looking for, boosting your chances of success. Now that we have seen why candidates often struggle, let's look at the right way to approach AWS interview questions. Alright, so steps to answer AWS interview questions. When answering AWS interview questions, a structured approach can set you apart. Here's a simple 3-step process to guide you. Step 1 is clarify the question before jumping into an answer. Before jumping into an answer, always clarify the focus of the question. Ask the interviewer, should I focus on cost, security, or performance? This helps you narrow down the specifics. For example, if the question is about Amazon S3, ask whether they are interested in storage classes, encryption option, or lifecycle policies. By doing this, you ensure you answer exactly what the interview is looking for. Step 2 is structure with AWS pillars. Leverage the well-architected framework to structure your response. If asked about high availability, for instance, you might say, I would deploy EC2 instances across multiple AZ for better reliability. This is the reliability pillar. Then use auto-scaling to optimize cost, that is cost optimization pillar. And implement an ALB for improved performance, which is performance pillar. This approach shows that you understand AWS core best practices and how they relate to real-world architectures. Step 3. Add business impact. Incorporating tangible outcomes into your response makes a strong impression. Instead of just listing features, add business impact. For example, this design reduced downtime costs by 15K per month at my previous company. Numbers help demonstrate how your decisions contribute to a business bottom line, which is what interviews are really looking for. With this approach in mind, let's examine real example to see how these steps work in practice. Alright, now live answers breakdown. So in this segment, we will walk you through how to answer some of the AWS interview questions. Let's break it down step by step. So question 1 is, how would you design a fault-tolerant web app on AWS? When faced with this question, the key is to demonstrate your ability to design for high availability and fault tolerance on AWS. Here's the step-by-step breakdown of how to answer. First, clarify. Start by clarifying the question to ensure you understand the specific requirements. For instance, you could ask, will this web app be handling sensitive user data? This helps you understand if you need to consider additional layers of security or compliance. Second thing that you should consider is structure. Structure your answer around AWS best practices and the well-architected framework pillars. That is reliability, performance, and cost optimization. Here's a simple structure for fault tolerance. That is load balancer, ALB. To distribute traffic evenly across the web servers, I would use an application load balancer, ALB, which provides built-in fault tolerance for rerouting traffic if an instance goes down. Then comes the EC2 in multi-AZ. For the web application, I will deploy EC2 instance across multiple availability zones to ensure high availability. This setup minimizes downtime in case one AZ faces an outage. Then RDS with read replicas. For the database layer, I would use RDS with read replicas for both performance and redundancy. This ensures the application can still read from the database even if one replica goes down. Then S3 for static assets. Finally, for static assets like images and videos, I would use S3 as it provides durability and high availability without the need for managing servers. Alright, so this was about how to answer. Alright, now mistakes to avoid. So in this section, we will explore some of the common mistakes that candidates make during AWS interviews. First one is don't ramble. One of the most common mistakes in interviews is rambling. It's easy to get excited and dive into every technical detail, but interviewers are looking for clear, focused answers. Make sure to stay on topic and address the question directly. For example, if asked about a solution involving EC2, be concise about how you would configure the instance, choose the right size, and then expect cost benefits. Stick to the most relevant options to make your answer more effective and keep the interviewer's attention. Second is don't ignore the trade-offs. Another mistake is to avoid discussing trade-offs. In real-world AWS solutions, every decision involves some kind of trade-off, whether it's cost versus performance, speed versus reliability, or security versus ease of use. When asked to design a system, acknowledge these trade-offs and explain why you are choosing one option over the other. Third one is don't pretend to know everything. It's tempting to act like you know every answer, but in reality, no one knows everything about AWS. If you are faced with a question that you don't know, don't be afraid to admit it. Instead of giving a vague or incorrect answer, say something like, I'm not familiar with this specific service, but I would research it using AWS documentation and the AWS community to ensure I make the right decision. This shows that you are resourceful, open to learning, and not afraid to seek out information when necessary. So these were some of the mistakes that you can avoid while giving answers. Now, question to ask for interview. Asking the right question during your AWS interview not only helps you better understand the role, but also demonstrate your proactive mindset and genuine interest in the job. So in this section, we will cover key questions you should ask the interviewer to get a clear picture of the teamwork and the challenges ahead. Alright, so let's start with the first one, which is, can you describe the primary AWS service and technologies your team uses on a daily basis? So this is question 1. Now, why it works? This question gives you an insight into the specific AWS tools you will be working with. It shows that you are interested in the day-to-day tech stack and want to understand the core technologies that will impact your work. Then second is, what are the biggest challenges your cloud team is currently facing and what approaches or solutions are being considered to overcome them. Now, why it works? This question allows you to gain insight into teams' pain points and challenges. It also helps you understand the strategies they are employing to tackle these issues, making you more prepared for what is coming to you. Third one is, how does the team stay up to date with the latest AWS updates and best practices? Why it works? Because cloud technologies evolve rapidly, and this question helps you gauge how committed the team is to staying current. It also shows that you value continuous learning and updating your skills, which is key in the AWS space. Fourth one is, how does the team measure the success of cloud implementations and monitor ongoing performance? Now, why it works? This question will give you insight into how the team evaluates the effectiveness of their cloud solutions and how they track performance metrics. It shows that you take care about results and are thinking strategically about how your contributions will impact the project. Alright, by now you understand exactly why most candidates struggle with AWS interviews, and more importantly, you have discovered the strategy to answer any technical question confidently. Also, if you are serious about transforming this knowledge into interview success, I highly recommend you joining our free masterclass. Check out the link in the description to join and take your AWS preparation to the next level.